Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
The juvenile delusional fandom is at a fever pitch.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Rick Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
This is episode 952 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. This is the King of Podcasts here with you. We do it once again. The juvenile delusional fandom is going crazy. And more TV deals, more shuffling around is going on this week. As we begin tonight's program, let's go and get into that real quick. So a couple of things to get into, and then we're going to get into the actual juvenile delusional fandom and the voices that are speaking on the behalf. So a couple of things coming out. WWE has been a press machine going through this past weekend. AAA Mania was on. AAA and WWE had on their YouTube channels a Spanish and English feed. 614,000 concurrent views in the initial part. 4 million viewers within the first 24 hours. And the live stream actually had a concurrent audience of 614,000 combined of the English and Spanish streams. And AAA Mania's gate was an all-timer, 19,691 at Arena Mexico in Mexico City. So, everything to be put into that, the WWE influence that was into the pay-per-view did really well for Mexico. And for AAA, that's pretty good. But so far, so good for that end. And like I said, there were certain things that were still allowed to go under the radar and allowed to be done with some of the quirkiness, the wackiness, the campiness of AAA with Pineda Escarlata, Omos versus Microman, Mr. Iguana versus Demonico, and all these kind of things that were like fun and cool into the mix. That was all added into it. But it could eventually very much start going away more and more as we see it. Just saying, it could very well happen. What can you do? And then you have a couple of announcements by ESPN and Peacock in regards to WWE. The notable one is, first of all, we're hearing about a pay-per-view that was going to go up against All Out coming up in September. And now we have it. September 20th, same night, a WWE PLE, not an NXT Premium Live event. And not only that, WWE has already made the change where ESPN now will begin airing Premium Live events beginning September 20th with WrestlePalooza. So Clash in Paris will be the last WWE Premium Live event on Peacock. That's it. So they made the decision to go do that. And then the next part of the decision is that they will then continue to go and carry all pay-per-views left in the year. So the available to the ESPN apps, the new DT direct-to-consumer subscriber app now, if you order the unlimited plan. So that will include Crown Jewel coming up October 11th, Survivor Series on the November 29th. So there's that. And so far, WrestlePalooza is going to be set up. John Cena will be featuring Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre in major matches throughout the night. And it will be held at the Gainbridge Treehouse, the home of the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever in Indianapolis, Indiana. So there we go. ESPN's already moving ahead forward. And also in the press release they put out about it, yes, on location, the TKO Group partner for concierge sports packages is offering a WrestlePalooza Priority Pass package. If you want to go and find out more about it, it's also available already. And tickets have to be sold for WrestlePalooza now with about a month to go. So there's that. And the pricing on the priority passes can start as low as $700 up to $2,800. Yeah, it's a lot of money. But there are some people that are probably still willing to go ahead and buy that. The next thing that comes up into play is when it comes to John Cena's retirement tour. His last match will be on Saturday Night's Main Event, but here's a caveat. Saturday Night's Main Event, going forward, at least in the intro for this year, you're only going to find it on Peacock. Saturday Night's Main Event will not be like it was on NBC Network. So NBC local stations will not be able to go and carry it. But December 13th, that'll be set up. Now, here's what's going on so far with Peacock. There's a multi-year partnership that's now in play to live stream the Saturday Night's Main Event series. So what we have now is an addition on top of the SmackDown deal for NBC Universal that Peacock will continue in some way or form. What they have now is this. So Saturday Night's Main Event will now stream in prime time on Peacock only 4 times each year. No NBC. That's done. And that's honestly because NBC is going to be focusing more on live sports in general. Because once we get into the fall, they're going to have college football. They're going to have the NBA coming up. They're going to have a lot more sports coming in that it's going to dominate. So Saturday Night's Main Event, as it was a live event, well, they're going to move it over to Peacock, make it something like that. Now, Peacock will continue to host the network library through the end of 2026, and they will continue to host NXT events. So their PLEs will continue through March 2026. And then Peacock will remain the home of the Encore SmackDown library, and USA Network will continue to be the home for SmackDown on Friday nights. So that doesn't affect any other part of that deal at all. So that's the news altogether when it comes to the network stuff. The changes with the broadcasters so far. At this point, we still don't know anything about TNA and the new TV deal. We haven't heard anything about that yet. We're still waiting on it. But again, we're coming up to October pretty soon, and they're going to want to go ahead and make an announcement soon enough. But there was a story that came out, and I believe I talked about it during the... No, I didn't talk about it during the AAA Mania post show, which I only did about 8 minutes on over on the website, initially for YouTube, and then also for others on all of my channels to go and catch. But the latest news that came out from John Alba of Sports Illustrated last week, which I didn't get to go and cover, but we'll bring it up now, is TNA is considering a move to a WWE associated network. So to the homes that could be is the CW and A&E, which already have WWE programming in some way, shape, or form right now. So John Alba says of Sports Illustrated that there is a move and that TNA Impact would be open to airing on Wednesday nights to compete head-to-head with AEW's Dynamite as part of a new media rights deal. Now, of course, they're not necessarily saying that WWE has to have a play in it, but you can't tell me otherwise. Of course, the company, TKO and WWE, are not going to say they're going to do that. But you can't tell me that they're not considering the idea of placing the Impact program as a caveat to go up against Dynamite because of the influence of the partnership that WWE has right now. We can go through it again. Carlos Silva is getting the help of the Creative Artists Agency, one of the largest advertising agencies, one of the largest talent agencies in the world, very big on live sports. They have helped to broker deals initially when Nick Khan was over at CAA to get SmackDown on Fox. And then Nick Khan became president of the company and then would eventually stay on in that term as TKO Group Holdings came into effect and bought the company outright. And Nick Khan brought in several CAA executives into the fold to help out with the new broadcast deals that came into play. And CAA will still continue to go ahead now in representation with TNA to try to get them a new TV deal. And in return, they're getting another home for them to go ahead and trade for some of their other talent, which is what they're doing right now. Notably, Trick Williams, who's still the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, but now he wears the belt upside down. And, if one would give benefit of the doubt, that's just part of the gimmick. That's just part of storyline. Well, that's also part of not necessarily good faith, but the optics don't look good. I don't necessarily like them myself, but they're going to do that anyway. Now, Dave Meltzer would bring on more of the report that TNA's interest by the CW is accurate, and some stakeholders want TNA to find a home at the CW, but no updates as to how far negotiations have progressed and no contracts have been signed yet. So we're waiting. But still, the idea that potentially moving the show to Wednesday nights, we can just tell that that's just a bullying tactic of the many bullying tactics that are being done right now. It's a lot of it. Now, let's just make sure we get clear what's been going on so far and the bullying tactics that have been happening with WWE going up against AEW. Okay, the TNA buffer to place them in front into the fire, much like they tried to do with NXT, they want to do that again. Okay? It's what they decide to do. So let's going back into the attempts to try to do this overall. We know this has been going on for a while. Let's not forget that it wasn't necessarily exactly the same night, but it was the same weekend. Okay? 2022, Labor Day weekend, we had AEW All Out with WWE's Clash at the Castle and Worlds Collide on the same weekend. But the difference was Clash at the Castle was overseas, and so it ran earlier in the day. But it was one of those things where, in the case where WWE would go after the likes of Jim Crockett Promotions owning NWA, this is where they wanted to go and target major pay-per-view weekends. And of course, there's been more to that. Now, in 2025 so far this year, let's just go through a few of those. First, you had Double or Nothing for AEW on May 25th, so Memorial Day weekend. AEW with Double or Nothing in Arizona, and then counter-programming by WWE with Saturday Night's Main Event, and NXT Battleground on the same day with the pay-per-view for AEW. So they tried to throw the NXT deal in that. Then it was All in Texas, another major pay-per-view on July 12th, where WWE decided to go ahead and counter-program with NXT's Great American Bash and Saturday Night's Main Event and Evolution 2 on the same weekend. With All in Texas, they decided to go ahead and move the event up to early in the afternoon to avoid the other programming. They still had the Great American Bash to go up against, but they did not try to go up against Saturday Night's Main Event. Now we have WrestlePalooza up against AEW All Out. AEW All Out going to be in Toronto, Canada. And no doubt about it, a first true shot in the belt. And now even more ammunition, where AEW now has to deal with not only the fact that WWE doesn't want to go and throw out NXT once again to play spoiler for the success of AEW All Out. They're going to put John Cena out there with Brock Lesnar, most likely. They haven't booked the match yet, but John Cena is going to defend the WWE Championship, and it will be the first pay-per-view on ESPN. Once again, this is just pure, unadulterated bullying. It's intimidation. And they're using as many resources now to go make that possible. Then you had the AEW CMLL Supercard, the Grand Slam special that was going on in Arena, Mexico earlier this year. And then WWE actually hosted a show for AAA, where on the same weekend, they decided to go ahead and put out an event as well to do another show in Mexico while AEW was down there as well, most recently doing another show, just because they wanted to do that. December of last year, AEW World's End did hold a house show, had to go up against a house show in the same time, where WWE scheduled a house show in the same city on the same night. That was December last year. They're planning to go ahead and run another event, reportedly to go up against World's End this December. That's the idea they're going with. And originally the idea was going to be that John Cena was going to have his last match on that night. But these are the kind of things they're doing. And that's the idea they've been trying to go with. Now, what what WWE is doing right now to do this here, this intimidation factor, is because, they got a lot of bravado right now. They have all these big broadcast deals they got up here that are in the billions of dollars up against AEW, which is, another broadcast deal that's around the $300 million mark. They have HBO Max and they have TBS and TNT. They got the Warner Brothers Discovery deal, and that's all they got. They are not anywhere in the same league as WWE right now, and the kind of deals they have and the kind of relationships and all the things they got. Okay? They don't. It's not even close. But this also takes some of the pettiness that goes along with this. Okay? Because this is all petty. This has been reported from Wrestling Observer Newsletter. Based on figures from Netflix, reported from a variety of places, last week's Monday Night Raw did 920,000 viewers live and same day globally. Global viewers, 920,000. Now, we can't count the 5.9 million viewers that were the first night, okay? But it's still the fact that it doesn't even matter if the audience goes down to 1 million viewers. Now, I want to go and play something back about some of the commentators been out there from the major podcasters out there. Those that were in the industry, that were in the business, in the ring, the locker room, or working as writers, working as executives behind the scenes. There's a couple of those podcasters out there that have been bickering at each other for a while now, and I've been following that. That's been Keeping It 100 with Conan and Disco Inferno, and Vince Russo on the Russo's brand. So, a couple things that happened over there. I want to go and play some of that for you right now about some of the commentary that's been put out there and the perception, which is contributing to the juvenile delusional fandom of what's going on with WWE. And then I'm going to take some of the fan podcasters and compare notes that they're saying as well, because this is a fever pitch. And it's gotten the narrative has gone off the deep end for some of these people. For those that want to see AEW fail, the commentary now is getting vitriolic. It's very petty. And it's indicative of the company. I blame Triple H and his team there, whether it's Paul Heyman, whether it's Bruce Pritchard, or whoever else is there. The TKO executives, Mark Shapiro, Ari Emanuel. No, I don't blame them for that. Listen, they are savages when it comes to business. So I don't blame them for that. But I think the underlings that they have now managing the day-to-day operations of WWE itself, they are petty. Because they're going to be able to go and do all this. Some of the decisions are being done personal. It's not business, it's personal. But they're able to go and inject both of them in here. And for those that have conflict of interest here, in these fan podcasters, okay, let's make this clear too. All right, so when you have Conan and the Disco Inferno referring to what's going on with WWE right now and the perception of how their success is being measured, okay, Conan is employed by AAA, of which AAA, even though the Pena family has some kind of involvement and influence still within AAA, Conan is essentially a paid employee of TKO Group Holdings in WWE because WWE owns majority stake in AAA under the holding company Philippe. Let's just make that clear. So maybe some of the commentary that might be said here is still going to be put in a positive light because WWE is kind of responsible for paying, and so this Inferno will also go and follow suit with Conan, not to go ahead and ruffle any feathers. They can't be critical. And the person that is being lambasted, and I'm not here to go ahead and pick one side or the other. I just listen to different voices out here to find out what's going on. Okay. And Vince Russo and his brand, they go off and on about it. Right? And then they went ahead and had a show, Castrating the Marks. And some comments were made there where you're going to hear Disco Inferno and Conan commenting and Vince Russo replying to those comments.
See, their talent is all over TV. like doing shows and stuff at the NFL draft, at the NHL draft.
What does that got to do with the writing of the show?
That's what I'm.
That's why I'm saying this is a straw man. He has changed the subject to argue a point that you were not saying.
This is exactly why I didn't want to go on the show. He is telling everybody listening to the show, this is why Vince didn't want to go on the show. Vince is saying, as far as television goes, this is a shitty show. Now we're on to Roman Reigns was at the NFL draft.
And again, all based on something that you never even said in the first place.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
They're like spreading these people like all
celebrities.
Right, they're celebrities. How could you like work your way backwards and look at that and say, "Oh, that's because it sucked"?
Okay, and just for context, so Vince Russo was being invited along with one of his folks on the brand as one of the podcast hosts to appear over on Keeping It 100, and there was going to be a debate that we're going to have over how WWE is performing right now, but it did not happen because there's been some back and forth things that might not have been so favorable and a lot of things that might not have worked well. So there's a strain right now between Vince Russo and Disco Inferno. That's all there than this. But what I wanted to get to more is what Disco Inferno says here to try to validate the success of the WWE, and Vince Russo makes some good points about how it's not as it should seem.
Like, how do you go from that product sucks to going forward to the arenas being filled? And then plus he's complaining about it's like Meltzer. He's going to complain about the Netflix numbers. I go, Vince, the Netflix numbers don't matter. He goes, well, what if you? I go, Vince.
Think about that, guys, for a second. The Netflix numbers don't matter. They don't matter to Netflix, Jeff. You pay $1.6 billion, and those numbers don't matter to you. That's what Glenn is saying. Those numbers don't, no matter what they do, those numbers are not going to matter to Netflix.
They got a 10-year deal. They're getting the same check from them every single week, whether 7.
Yeah, so what he's arguing now, that's on WWE's side. That's not on Netflix's side.
Right.
Million people watch it or 0 people watch it. If 0 people watch during the week, they're still getting the check.
Do you see how he's strawmanned right here? He went from what it means to Netflix to what it means to WWE while he's making it seem like he's still talking about the same thing. You're saying the Netflix numbers matter to Netflix. And his response is, no, they don't matter to WWE because they still get the money. You're not talking about WWE.
That's why I didn't want to go on the show. Do you understand? This started with, like you said, something I never said, and I hate watch the show, and now we're off on this freaking tangent like we always are off on these tangents with Glenn.
And the arena's still packed. Okay, so it's like, so the whole thing.
And then you get the laugh. You get the laugh. Jeff, I said the show as a television show this.
Now, the thing is that they go on with a little more talk about the personal stuff, but yeah, arenas are still getting sold out, and no matter what, WWE can go ahead and just kind of skate along with the fact that they're getting paid doesn't make a difference.
By the arenas. Because if you start seeing empty seats, then we're going to know that the product is losing general interest across the board. But right now, they draw 5 times as many fans as AEW does on social media, and they're drawing 5 times as many people in the building.
Now we're bringing AEW into the equation. What does that have to do with anything? Jeff, do you see what I go through every week with him? This is a typical...
See, the whole point is that when it comes to AEW, yeah, this shouldn't matter. Of course, they're going to have menial numbers compared to what WWE does right now. And it's really just a matter of just more than anything else. Like, they have... The AEW can put out as much content as they want, but if they're not familiar and they don't have that kind of traction, yeah, that's what's going to happen. But AEW is still going to get some kind of audience that they're going to be able to monetize off of that. They still need multiple revenue streams for themselves because $300 million can only go so far, along with the gates they are to make other certain shows. But remember, when WWE gets, so many millions of views on social media, that's WWE only making the money off of it, which is minuscule compared to the broadcast deals they're making off of, okay? We're talking about thousands of dollars in advertising per month. versus billions of dollars a year that they're getting off of the broadcasters. It's really thousands versus the billions. Like, for me, the broadcasters should be handled and taken care of. You need to provide them with good content that will keep retention of the audience, because then the audience is going to watch those advertisers, not what's on social media. But Glenn's not going to get that part. Discomfort doesn't want to go ahead and go that route.
And is on to the next thing.
This is not a difficult equation to figure out. And I try to explain this to Vince every week. He just doesn't want to hear it. Like, how could you not? Like, how could you call yourself the pros and the experts? And you can't understand this. It's like, what do we can sit there, we critique the show every week. There's a bunch of stuff we don't like, but we work from the things like.
He doesn't watch the show, Jeff. What is it, Glenn?
Right. When you're going to use social media metrics to go ahead and value out anything, that's enough. Then we can't have a conversation. There cannot be a debate, because it doesn't make any sense what's being said right there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take from a couple of fan podcasters what they said this week regarding WWE on their new broadcast deals and how they should go ahead and position themselves in their battle against their petty battle against Tony Khan, to be honest with you. All right. So there's one, it's a 9-minute diatribe. I'm not going to play their clips. Okay. I played the thing with Vince and Disco Inferno because you hear the voices. You can just hear the mannerisms and just like the way they are handling the discussion here, where it's ridiculous on both sides, and they don't realize what's ridiculous about it. That's okay. But that's the kind of, this is also just kind of an extension of the juvenile delusional fandom that's out there. Now, let's take what we got here from two podcasters that I do follow quite a bit of. And by the way, these two podcasters actually do a show together on a weekly basis. At least as far as I know they do. So I will take the very pro WWE anti-Tony Khan side. This person, it's very personal and petty for him. He obviously, he tries to act like he cares somewhat about AEW, but he doesn't, because he's indicative of one of those loyal WWE fans that says he supports other brands. He even works on another brand himself. And at first, when AEW came in, it was when WWE was on a slump, creative slump, and they were just not doing very well overall. And then, things changed when the pandemic happened. But the direction that the company was going and what they were doing, we're still getting some of an attachment to that now, 6 months, 6-7 years later. Let's just make it that clear as well. Now, here's what he says. I'm just going to read the transcript of what he says and just go ahead and pick off what we have here, what he says. So he lays out an article from Fightful that explains all the broadcast rights, that WWE is intentionally spreading their broadcast rights. So Monday Night Raw, Netflix, CW, NXT possibly going to a partner, one of their partners right now in wrestling, going to one of those broadcasters, either NXT or TNA. Then AEW's programming. Then there's a programming they have with Evolve on Tubi. And then TKO in general also. All the broadcast deals, they've been able to spread themselves out with live content or recorded content, whatever. They've been able to get themselves out there and put that intellectual property of both WWE and their ancillary products and TK and UFC, and just spread it across. It just goes across the entire spectrum of streaming with major corporate backing. Okay. So here's what he's got. He says that WWE has solidified themselves for the next 5 to 7 years. Netflix is a 10-year deal with the option to go back to 5. Yes. Right. As far as the engagement on social media with this strategic chess move here or chess moves, this leaves AEW with what exactly? When their contract is up with Warner Brothers Discovery or Warner Brothers, it's Discovery that will be the streaming and the movie arm or the production arm for... Actually, Discovery is going to be the cable arm for all the cable networks that are owned under the umbrella of Warner Brothers Discovery, because it's going to get split off. So AEW will deal with that. But then Warner Brothers, they will have HBO Max. So they're still attached no matter what because of the HBO Max deal. the fact that HBO Max is going to support their programming, it doesn't matter. Because even if Discovery were to go ahead and sell their stations off, all the cable stations off, AW will still have a home on HBO Max and hopefully have another place to go ahead and, put their content. But in the meantime, the contract is still in play. And the contract was made after the merger, right? Because remember, when it came to Warner Bros. Discovery, after the merger, they went off and, when the Warner Bros. Discovery did not put enough money up to retain the NBA rights, and they lost those, they had to go and find something else to go ahead and fit into play. So just like ESPN, they went to wrestling to go and find content, much like everybody else has. Same thing with AEW. And let's not make this clear as well. Amazon Prime also involved with AEW as well. And who knows if AEW were to do something where if Warner Bros. Discovery, if the cable channels went away, what would be the option that Amazon Prime decides to go ahead and take up the show? Things can change. Because remember, there's only so much of a lifeline left for cable. It's just an attachment now and a bundle with streaming at this case. Now, where are they going to go, he says? They can't go anywhere unless Warner's going to re-up them for another 3 to 4 years. We're waiting until, 2027? I mean, either which way. And at that point, I don't know what Warner is looking at. I really don't. I generally don't know what Warner is looking at, but you'll have the sickos. Oh, well, they're the number one show on cable television. That's great. There's been no growth. There's been no upswing in ratings. There's been no upswing in the demo. Okay. We know they've had a slump. And at the moment, the Dynamite ratings have been into the sub 700,000, but mostly 600,000 viewers, pretty regular basis. But we also do not know numbers on HBO Max. And Dave Meltzer's going to report, and going through a lot of different research, because he can't get exact numbers from HBO Max themselves, that 200,000 viewers is a pretty good estimate, a pretty good average of how many people are actually watching on HBO Max. If people have HBO Max, they got, 115 million subscribers. I mean, it's not what Netflix has with 230 million, but still, I want to just give this comparison, all right? I mean, if WWE is able to get, now roughly 1 million viewers, was before 2-3 million viewers globally for that, and HBO Max, I don't know if it's available globally either, but it's a domestic audience. I can see where the numbers make sense, where they get 200,000 viewers. I can see that. And if you want to go and put that together, that takes them back up to where they were prior to HBO Max bringing them on board. But we know it was a significant change in January of 2025 when the ratings would change because of the fact that AEW programming was on HBO Max since the start of the year. We know that's there. So I have to go and assume there's got to be some people watching, but people don't really know the numbers. People don't know the numbers. So this right here, even what Netflix gives us is a big sacrosanct, because I don't even know what they're going to tell us either, because their viewership, they've been so tight to the close of the vest of giving out that information. They don't give it out the next day. They're not doing Nielsen work. They're not going to be like Nielsen. If they don't have to go and give out that information, they're not. Netflix is very pick and choosy about what they put out there. So we don't know what they're saying. But, we're not getting announcements from WWE about, praising the audience that they get out there. No, nothing like that at all. But I will say that, the pay-per-views are doing pretty well. So people need to follow the storylines for the pay-per-views to go and do well, for a Double or Nothing or for an All in Texas to get 180,000 pay-per-view buys. They got to be doing something, because people are following the storylines from television, watching on Dynamite or Collision. And Collision has been getting some audience. I mean, not so much this last week, and they're going to have a struggle because of the sports are going to have also as well. But yeah, sub 200,000 viewers, whether we're getting 500,000 viewers when they were going up on Thursday nights, and easily beating TNA and Impact. So there's that going for them. He says, I got to go digging for where AEW Dynamite is normally when I turn off Netflix. Monday Night Raw, is showing live right there on the homepage. Got to go digging for any new content. Where are the pay-per-views on Max? Where they heard they were coming since January? It's fucking August. By the time they get there, they have. This fucking deal's going to be over. Where else is Warner? Where else is AEW going to go but Warner? So now, I mean, the thing is, HBO Max still has to go and set things up where they don't have premium content at an additional price. Remember this too, okay? You have to go and buy a higher tier plan on ESPN to go and watch the pay-per-views. But there's no set price that WWE gets for the pay-per-views because they're already getting a check. For EW, they're still in the original model that with HBO Max, they're not setting up a higher tier for that content. But what AEW does have, if you want to find them, they're on Amazon Prime. And a lot of people have Prime. Listen, they're going to have NBA on there this year. They already got NFL. I mean, they have live sports there. Amazon Prime is a pretty good spot to be to go and do pay-per-views. And they get it. And remember, they're charging $49.99 for those pay-per-views. And they still do the stuff at Dave & Buster's, and they still do the movie theaters and all that kind of stuff. So they're still taking a good rake in of money. If they're getting $40 a month or $50, every 6 to 8 weeks, they're making money. And if they made 180,000 buys and got that, plus they had a great gate for All in Texas, they're still making money. But HBO Max, they got them to stream on HBO Max, but the pay-per-views, yeah, it wasn't going to happen right away. And that was actually made any announcement, but either which way. He goes on to say that WWE has drawn this shark, this little baby shark. They've drawn out the shark to shallow waters. We're going to drown it out. I don't know what that means. They don't care about ratings. They don't care about their attendance and pay-per-view buys in the position they're in because AEW got themselves in that position in the first place. WWE is playing with a dead animal, he says. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they do. AEW is in the dumps because they've allowed themselves to get there. This is the kicker. Why is AEW in that position now? Looking at the WWE, drowning them out with all these different platforms and spreading their content everywhere like seeds in a garden. Why are they doing that? Nobody truly understands why the WWE is so angry with Tony Khan, and AEW has nothing to do with professional wrestling. What is the one thing that you can do to really drive the dagger in their heart? Take from their pockets. Tony Khan over 5 years has only gotten worse. Actively increase a professional wrestler's salary to the point where it is absolutely unattainable to maintain this overall long-term vision. Whatever his vision for AEW, they're not making any money there. They're not in the green. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, this is all with no factual information to go back up. It's a privately owned company. They're not publicly traded. With TKO, we can see the revenue. Okay? And some of the broadcast deals had to come into play. Also had to go and help out because when TKO inherited UFC, it was $3 billion in debt. But the new broadcast deal with Paramount Plus at $7.7 billion is going to pull them out of that debt. Like all that extra money is going to be coming in, that's going to be baked in to their future revenue. They're going to be just fine. AEW is not hurting right now. And as far as I'm concerned, Tony Khan with AEW has just been going on their own lane anyway. They're not trying to compete. They're not. Now he goes on about contracts and things like that, which whatever. And then he goes on to say, okay, says that Mercedes Moné is making absolutely ridiculous amount of money. A ridiculous amount of money. Now, he has a personal animus against Mercedes Moné in general over a lot of things that he's gotten himself caught under fire in the past on social media for what he said. Because he's one of those that's made comments. Like I said, when I talked about the juvenile delusional fandom or toxic wrestling fandom, just look for an episode that I did on that, and you'll see that he got himself into some trouble, some hot water before, and that's hurt him. And some of the same kind of commentary has hurt him with any chance of a relationship with AEW, which is why he's on a diatribe like he is right now. Let's just call it what it is. I don't care if he has it or not, but it is such a bias that can't be objective. Same thing with Disco Inferno. Cannot be objective. Now, who was much more objective that I've been following for a long time, I can definitely feel like where he's coming from doesn't have that kind of feel. I feel it's a little bit better off. Okay. So he goes on to say, this is a different podcaster. Okay. They'll talk about competing directly with Dynamite on Wednesdays, but using TNA as a pawn to do so is very on brand with WWE because for all the people who love to say, well, Tony took the first shot. Tony called Nick Khan, the con man from Connecticut, years ago on TV, and he called the WWE the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling. You want a competition? Now they're competing. No, that's not what they're doing here. Tony Khan ran his mouth, and it's okay for WWE to punch him right back in the mouth if they want to. That's fine. Even though some people do seem to forget that Triple H is the one that fired the first shot, technically, by calling AEW a pissant company at the Hall of Fame. And just for context, I'll go ahead and play that clip for you.
Billy, let's be honest. Hold on. Let's be honest. He will buy that pissant company just to fire you again. But it's long and it sounds important. Apparently, if you put executive vice president in front of anybody's name, they feel important.
Now, because Billy Gunn was joining D-Generation X at the Hall of Fame, and Triple H wanted to go ahead and drown out the AEW chants that were going on there because people were kind of happy about AEW at that time. I guess it was April 6th, 2019 when that was announced. So it was just right before AEW comes in. One of the very first public expressions against the competition. And this is 4 months after Dynamite, or to me, yeah, it was several months before Dynamite comes on the air. So we already know where Triple H's mindset was when he was going to be tasked that October to go ahead and put NXT up head to head against Dynamite. And so for the company itself, there's a petty animus right there. With others that feel slighted by Tony Khan, they're going to do the same thing here as well. Eric Bischoff feels slighted by Tony Khan. That's why he decides to bash on a regular basis. Well, I guess people just get rubbed the wrong way. Just the way it is. Back to the commentary here for this other fan podcaster who has been around for a lot longer than I have, but I respect his opinion. But find me where Tony Khan ever counter-programmed WWE the way that WWE does AEW. Find me any example of Tony Khan going out of his way, even if it is to the detriment of his own business, to directly compete with the company in a way that is intended to harm the other company. Trash talking is one thing that can be fun, right? That's fine within reason. Competing for the same talent is one thing, which is absolutely what WWE and AEW do, and TNA and every other major promotion. This is something completely different than what we've seen, not since WCW was around. And honestly, this is worse. This is worse, but this is a company in the WWE that behaves like it has an axe to grind. It's either that they feel directly threatened by AEW's existence, and I don't honestly believe that WWE believes that they're any real jeopardy of ceding their market share, in the industry to Tony Khan at All Elite Wrestling. This feels personal. Yeah. And he says it just like I've said it many times. When Dynamite first premiered, Triple H had one job with NXT, extinguish the flame. Vince McMahon wanted Triple H to do with NXT that. When they went head-to-head, he failed. Vince McMahon was not happy about it. It allowed AEW to get a foothold and draw for the same pool of talent. So that's what he did. And then you had folks that were getting six-figure deals, contracts, because Tony Khan, there is putting out great deals for some of these folks that he's decided to go and bring on board. He's not taking everybody from WWE, right, especially not right now. I mean, really what's been going on more is that AEW talent has been being picked off by WWE, but they're not being put on main roster programming. They're doing the same old system like before. When there was a TNA signee that they brought in as a free agent from TNA, they would never put on the main roster, except for AJ Styles. But everybody else, no. You go to NXT. That's what they did before. So once again, it's the same circle jerk over and over again. And this pettiness has just gotten to a point where it's not sustainable. But who is it going to hurt at the end of the day? This kind of bravado, this kind of intimidation, this kind of ego, this kind of narcissism, to be honest with you. If the company stays successful, they're going to have a lull. I mean, right now, as we've talked about before, WWE is really going after crowd response, the pop. They're going for basic storylines. They think that the integrity of the stars they have out there are going to be enough for people to go ahead and take any kind of basic storyline they throw out there, and they'll be just fine. So if they want to have CM Punk and Seth Rollins go after each other for 20 minutes just to set up some match, I mean, you have Paul Heyman going out there making comments about the Vision and taking forever to get somewhere, and then Jey Uso coming out and not really saying much, just to go and set up a match with Jey Uso and, was it Braun Breaker, right? Whatever. It's like there's not much being said. How about the handling of Naomi this week? Now, I'm pretty sure I said this. I don't know if I had said, the fact about why she was going to be taking time off. I could have told you she was pregnant. I mean, at her age, it sounds like she doesn't want to wait any longer to go have children. I'm actually surprised. They've been married, Trinity and Jimmy, for a while now. So I'm not surprised that she's not pregnant. Yeah, it'd be the right time when it could be. And so she's here now at this point at the belt, and she's looking to go ahead and be a mom. Great for her. But how do they handle it? Well, first off, you had Stephanie McMahon doing an interview with Trinity and Jimmy Uso to announce the pregnancy. But then how does Naomi react? She doesn't react, like a mom expected to be. She decides to go and stay in character. I don't even know the logic behind why, if she's going to be heading out, why does she have to go ahead and play heel and still stay in heel faction, in a heel stance, as she's going to be on the way out having to go and relinquish the belt?
You are happy for me. I bet you are. But you know what? This ain't my first time relinquishing a title. I handed it back the first time, but this time I ain't handing you shit. Yeah. My hormones are jumping like a disco. This ain't the time nor place. So I advise you to get the hell out of my face.
Doesn't make sense to put that out there. And they made a long thing about her pregnancy and that whole storyline just for her to go and do that. It doesn't make any sense why. But they chose to go that route. It's whatever. I mean, I'm not going to be able to go ahead and understand what they're doing here. And there's not like they have any other direction to what they're going to do. No, okay, they don't want to do it with what Becky Lynch did when she dropped the belt and Asuka was there and, all that good stuff during the Thunderdome days. Fine, they don't want to do that? Okay. But everything else they're doing right now doesn't make much sense in the whole respect. They're not doing much of anything. Now, what's really funny is that when you look at ESPN and the promotion of the first pay-per-view on the new direct-to-consumer app, yes, Jelly Roll and Snoop Dogg are one of the first two faces you see on there. And then you see some of the stars where you see, okay, Becky Lynch, John Cena, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre. And they're just wanting to go ahead and put who they have out there. Oh, here's Tyrese Halliburton, among other people. And, they're setting up things to have WrestlePalooza coming up. And there are only certain people they have that have been around with the company for so long that they're going to go and promote. Meanwhile, they're languishing with everything else they have on that main roster. Karrion Kross is not coming back. Some of the stars that probably have some upside to them that could be doing really well are kind of being misused. I still think Braun Breaker with a Vision is still a bad idea. Dominic Mysterio is showing signs of real main event status, but for whatever reason, they didn't let him go and win the belt in AAA because they're going to continue his storyline with AJ Styles. But Dominic Mysterio apparently is getting a rematch at the next AAA show against Vikingo. Okay. But still, it's like, it's not time to go and pull the trigger on Dominic Mysterio. Really? Okay. Trick Williams still holding the belt at TNA. Don't know if he's going to hold it till Bound for Glory, but like I said, why is he not on the main roster right now? Why is he fooling around over there? Doesn't make sense. I wish I had more to kind of just contribute to this and why I don't understand what their whole idea is and where they're trying to go with things. But there will be changes. Lucha Libre analyst Lucha Blog is there's been some claims about AAA and what they're doing over there that to stabilize AAA. And they're looking to go ahead and change the logo for AAA by the year's end. And AAA is assuring town that the goal is to enhance rather than overhaul at Triple Mania. That's what he said to the folks there. But we know there's going to be some changes over there anyway. That's what's going to happen. Okay, I've got one last thing to bring up real quick before we can wrap things up. Forbidden Door, yeah, there's a pay-per-view on AEW this weekend. I didn't even get a chance to go and bring up anything about it, but they have set up matches for this weekend, and half the matches feature interpromotional talent. So 13 bouts are already expected. Hiroshi Tanahashi will compete in his final UK match. So we know for sure that for the Women's World title, Toni Storm will take on Athena, and I'll take Toni Storm to beat Athena for that Women's World title. The Continental Championship on the line, where the Golden Lovers, which is Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Darby Allin, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Will Ospreay will take on the Death Riders, Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd in a lights out steel cage match. I will take the Faces on the win. Hurt Syndicate will take on Brody King and Bandito and FTR in a three-way tag team elimination match for the AEW World Tag Team titles. There's been talk about the fact that Hurt Syndicate are asserting creative control, so they don't want to lose to FTR. So we'll see if there's any real truth to that claim if the Hurt Syndicate drop the belts this weekend. I'm going to predict that they're not. Let's just put it like that. Okada will take on Swerve Strickland for the Unified Championship. I'll take Okada with the win. Toni Storm will, again, like I said, retain for the Women's World title. Mercedes Moné will retain the AEW TBS Championship versus Alex Windsor, Persephone, and Bozilla. Kyle Fletcher, I expect to retain the TNA Championship over Hiromu Takahashi. Then we had the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Zack Sabre Jr. against Nigel McGuinness. And I will take Zack Sabre Jr. on the win. And Hangman Adam Page will defend the AEW World Championship against MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. And then tonight on the Dynamite program, there were stipulations made to counteract the fact that Adam Page was able to go ahead and cajole MJF to cash in his contract to win by holding Mark Briscoe hostage and almost ready to go and light him on fire. That Adam Page had to go ahead and concede that the match could change hands via countout or disqualification. And that MJF did not have to go ahead and exercise signing his contract to cash in for that world title shot. And Hangman Adam Page said yes. And then Adam Copeland, Christian Cage will finally team up together for the first time in AEW against Killswitch and Kip Sabian to set things up there. And that's what we got. We're all set with that. Yeah, the limited tournament ended in a draw, so that's why you have a three-way match for that. All set up for everybody. There we go. But that's the show for tonight. I will be doing a post show for Forbidden Door London coming up this weekend. I hope you'll join me for that on Sunday night. And we'll keep it on everything else. The pettiness is real. And trust me, during the Forbidden Door London this weekend, you're going to hear a lot of it. It's going to just be out there. Anyway, come back this weekend, enjoy Forbidden Door, and join me for another Wrestling Zero podcast because wrestling needs us.